Charity organization Gift of the Givers will be ramping up their humanitarian mission in flood-hit areas in KwaZulu-Natal. Since yesterday, the aid organization has been distributing much-needed aid. These include blankets, plastic sheeting, new clothing, shoes, food, baby milk, linen, dishes, stationery, diapers, sanitary pads, school clothing and other relevant items. For an update, we now joined on the line by its founder, Dr Imtiaz Sooliman, via Skype from Pietermaritzburg. Dr. Sooliman, thank you so much for joining us. You flew over the affected areas in KwaZulu-Natal yesterday, giving us such a much-needed idea of the areas that were affected. What is your assessment?
Good morning. The destruction is massive in the area. It's very widespread, both in terms of infrastructure, buildings, homes, informal settlements, small streams becoming big rivers, land washed away, roads washed away, gardens washed away. The destruction in a very short space of time, with a huge amount of rain, has caused havoc along the whole of KwaZulu-Natal, from Durban running along the south coast. Of course, a lot of focus has been predominantly in Durban and the surrounding area, but we have teams in Ikopo and in the south coast. They were in the municipality meetings yesterday morning and again today, and they said today they found the destruction was far worse than what they realized yesterday. I think over the next few days, as we get closer to the ground and more people can get access to communication or get into areas that's accessible, you will probably find that this destruction is far more than we expected it to be. And it's seeming like that because we're getting more and more calls with each hour from very varied areas to say 300 people affected, 400 people affected, 800 people affected. I think at the end, it's going to run into thousands of people affected.
In your efforts, what are you prioritizing? Is it the rehabilitation of infrastructure or humanitarian efforts?
Infrastructure, when you classify that, it is to do with roads and, government property. Of course, that's the government's responsibility, not ours. Ours right now is what we call soft aid. People are cold, they're wet, they're hungry, they need hope. So that kind of intervention requires blankets, new clothing, shoes, food parcels, hygiene packs, and all the things that you mentioned in the introduction. But subsequent to that, in cases like this, people's main priorities or their main concern is, where do I live? Where do I go to? In many areas we've been to, there's no trace of the house. The whole house, what house, houses, 80 to 100 to 200 houses are washed away. There's no sign of house. And people are very, very upset, not knowing where they're going to stay, with more rain coming at night. So shelter is priority. But there is another problem. The area is so dangerous where they were staying, they can't stay there anymore. They need to move somewhere else. And that's where the city has to come in to reallocate alternative places for the people to stay in. And once that is done, we will then look at supporting them with building material, plastic sheeting, corrugated sheeting, because in the end, a house is security, and that's what people need most.
You're on the ground. How has this affected people having to be resettled suddenly?
Look, it's something it's not something that we haven't been through before. It's something that people in most areas have also been through before, where they've been affected, maybe not to the extent now with the rain, but they've had rain damage before, they've had flooding before. The good thing about, or the advantage of South Africans in this situation, they pull themselves up very, very fast. You've seen it all over the country. Houses can be destroyed overnight, and 48 hours, you see 600 to 700 houses come up very, very quickly. People are not too worried as long as they can get a place to stay, to rebuild their house, but it must not be like 8 or 10 kilometers away from where they were originally. Because sometimes their kids are in that school, they're used to the area, or they work nearby. So as long as it's a reasonable distance within the same location or in the same location, they're not going to complain too much. But the moment you start saying we're moving you 10 or 12 kilometers, there's going to be a huge outcry.
How can South Africans come to the party in terms of assisting with all these needs? Perhaps you can also give us a sense of what particular supplies are needed.
Well, what we've mentioned in your introduction, the most expensive items are going to be plastic sheeting, corrugated sheeting, and maybe building blocks. For that, cash is going to be the best option. For good food items, blankets, clothing, it doesn't make sense to collect it all over South Africa. It will be easier for people in Durban and nearby, where they can bring it to our offices in 563 Ridge Road, Overport, or the best form, would be cash for transfers. And all those details are on my website, www.giftofthegivers.org. They can call a toll-free line, 0800 786 911, or you can follow what's happening on our Facebook page.
Our line is not too clear. Please just repeat that office address where people can drop off materials.
563 Ridge Road, Overport.
And in terms of giving volunteering services, how many volunteers are needed? How many have come through already?
We don't need advantages. You don't need to take your own volunteers, because the victims themselves become volunteers. The areas you go to, those people help you help themselves. And you will find communities around those people who are okay, who are fine, they become volunteers. So right now in every area, there are many volunteers of the people themselves and the people around them who are not affected.
What activities will you be engaging in today in terms of working with the weather conditions?
Well, our teams on the ground from early this morning. We spent most of the time yesterday trying to identify areas where people were affected, because we're getting so many requests. We need to verify which is the correct areas. And by late yesterday evening, a lot of areas were given to us. So from this morning, one team will be verifying areas and the need, and the second team will then follow up to the first area and supply what's needed. They're going to go in Welberdach, Bottlebrush, Quarry Road, Palmy Road, Amlazi, Lamontville, RK Khan Informal Settlement. We've already started in Ikopo, in Margate, and there's several other areas. We're also looking at Pinetown. So I must emphasize, it's not easy to get there quickly. It's taking a lot of time with the roads being damaged. So all the processes will take a little longer than we would like it to take.
Dr. Sooliman, give us the website address once again. www.giftofthegivers.org. And the cell and the toll-free number 0800 786 911. Thank you so much for your time and all those efforts. Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, who's with Gift of the Givers.